This video will show you the reality of decorating a square cake with fondant. Now, you need to have gotten your cake nicely ganached, and if you don't know how to get your cake looking like this, check out my video where I show you from the stacking to the filling to the ganaching your cake using acrylic disc and the setting process. Everything is in that video. It'll be showing at the top of your screen and also in the description section. Now, it's important that your cake is nice and firm. If you are using ganache, then it will be at this state if you allow it to set. And if you're using buttercream, allow it to firm up in the fridge. Next, we are going to prepare our fondant. Now, one key thing when it comes to fondant is you need to knead your fondant. If you're not sure what that means, I'll put a video at the top of the screen explaining to you in details how you need to prep your fondant. My fondant has already been prepped and I'm just rolling it out. You may have noticed earlier on in the video, I was measuring the top of my cake. That is because you need to know the measurements, the dimension of your top of your cake and the size of your cake because you are going to create square panels. Now, the panels should be slightly larger than the dimensions of your cake, and you'll see that later on. But here you can see I'm rolling it nice and flat. When you are rolling fondant, it's always good to sort of flip it a couple of times so that it doesn't stick to the work surface. And then I'm going to start measuring out. If you don't know what tools that you need to work with fondants, I've created a video where I go in detail explaining to you the tools that you need to make fondant easier to work with. So check it out. So now I know the dimensions of my cake, and you can see now I'm going to measure out and create a square panel. The panel should be larger than your cake. You need to have a bit of an overhang so that you can trim and create nice sharp edges. This is where a ruler is invaluable. You can either use a ruler, or if you've not got a ruler like this, you can use a tape measure. But you must measure so that you can create panels that are big enough. If it's too small, then you can't cover it too properly. If it's too large, then it's just a waste of fondant, and yeah, it's not good to waste stuff. So measure accurately. I'm using a roller cutter, but if you don't have this, you can just use a plain old kitchen knife or a cutting blade or anything sharp to create your panel. Now, I learned this tip from a pro baker. Freeze your square panels for about 5 minutes or so, just so that it firms up and it makes it so much easy to work with because your fondant is stiffer. So I've tried that tip and it works for me. So here I'm putting it on the top of the cake. So you can see it's larger than the cake. Smoothing it either with your hands or you can use a fondant smoother. Now with this bit, I would say don't rush it. Just make sure it's nice and smooth to adhere to the top of your cake. Don't worry, I will show you what I used to stick the fondant on later on in the video. Okay, so now I am now going to start to trim the edges. One thing I did, I started off just using a sharp craft blade to cut along the edges, and then you can start to see that actually it wasn't really precise. Sometimes I was dragging the fondant, sometimes I was cutting into the ganache, and it was looking a little bit not so good. And here you'll start to see that I'm actually like dragging the fondant. So this is a rookie mistake. And I actually phoned a friend to say, help, what's going on? He said, what you need to do is you need to have something to sort of help you guide the cutting knife so that it's not pulling or dragging the fondant. And you can see that actually the advantage of having frozen the or the fondant to make it stiff is that actually it's a little bit firmer. If you try doing this with just normal soft um, fondant, then I think I would have struggled more. So you can see it's not really good. So rather than doing this process, this is one thing that I've learned is that you actually need something as a guide. So here you'll start to see that I'm using a flexi smoother, and I'm actually using that to guide the cutting. So I'm actually cutting the fondant just at the edge of that flexi smoother, and that just makes it a little bit easier to cut and get nice sharp edges. So here's a tip for you. Smoothen your fondant with your smoother. You can either use the normal fondant smoother or a flexi smoother. Again, like I said, if you're not sure what tools that you need, then you should watch my videos where I give you a beginner's guide to tools that make fondant working a lot more easier. Yes, so here I'm using Trex. Trex is also known as shortening, and I'm using that to attach the fondant to the cake. Other things that people use, some people use water, some people use a steamer to steam the ganache, and then that um, adds a little bit of moisture to the surface and allows the fondant to stick. I have seen on Instagram people use things like piping gel, but I have no experience of that. Trex seems to work for me, but you just need something to stick the fondant onto the side of the cake. When you first apply it, the best actually thing to use is to use your hand as a smoother to actually smooth the fondant on, and then once you do that, you can use a fondant smoother. In this particular part, the flexi smoother actually works very well because it's easy to handle and it's flexible, and you could just smooth. And one thing that surprised me when I first started working with fondant, and I'm not a pro, but I find that you actually have to be patient in terms of properly smoothing your fondant on so that it sticks nicely. And that also helps you get rid of any imperfection. Now you can see now I've learned from my mistakes. I'm using the edge of the smoother to trim the excess fondant off. You know, if you really want to up your cake decorating skills and also make yummy, delicious cakes, then you should subscribe to my channel. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. You know, I love you. And if you are new here and want to really get decorating with cakes, then do subscribe to Dr. Mommy Cake's channel and join my tribe from across the world learning how to make amazing cakes. And with this, you do the same thing for all the four sides. Repeat the same process. Roll out, create your panels, freeze the panels, apply the panels to the side after adding something to stick it down, smoothing with your hands and then with your flexi smoother. And then once you've done all the sides, then you use your flexi smoother to basically smoothing two edges until you get nice sharp edges. Now, at some point, I just thought, yes, I will let it go. The edges are not fully sharp or neat, but hey, this is the reality of working with fondant. We want to create cakes that look really nice. Yes, they may not look perfect, but for us home bakers, we aim for the sky, and if we no, we aim for the stars, and if we reach the sky, anyway, you know what I mean. But you do your best. Smoothing the fondant with your flexi smoother until you are happy. At some point, you'll have to stop because you'll start to find that your ganache or buttercream underneath can start to get soft and moved. So don't over smoothing. And here is the finished ganache cake. I think I did a pretty good job and I'm quite happy with that. So this is something that you can recreate too in your home kitchen using these steps, using my video tutorial. And you can look at that and see I am so proud of myself and super happy with what I've achieved. And the next step is just to put the finishing touches and decorate it with fondant decorations. No, I didn't make them myself. I bought them pre-purchased and yeah, you can do that too, because I'm not really a pro when it comes to um, fondant modeling. So that's my cake. I did a pretty good job, and I'm sure that you can too. Don't forget, if you got any questions, anything you want to talk about cake related, then drop a note in the comment section, or if just to give me an encouraging comment, I'll take that anyway. Thank you for watching my video. Till next time I see you, I guess I'll say happy baking, happy cake decorating. Goodbye.